Hello and welcome to the Vlogging Pod. Tonight we are joined by contemporary and romance novelist Mel Walker. Welcome to the room, Mel.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. It's nice to have you. So, like I was telling you before, I like to do a little bit of research on every author. So, I saw that when you were growing up, you lived a few miles down from the Shea Stadium, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. Within distance, used to bike there.
Oh, wonderful. So you are born and raised in New York, yes?
Yes, yes. Native New Yorker, proud of it.
Awesome. Okay, so, and you're a Mets fan.
Oh, big time. Yes.
I heard that.
Sometimes it's a good thing. Most times it's not, but I enjoy it.
That's all right, Moody Way. That's okay. Um, I believe that the majority of your family are is it New York Jets fans? Am I saying that right?
Uh, uh, well, in terms of baseball, we're Yankee fans.
Yankee fans, okay.
In terms of football, yeah. In terms of football, a lot of them were Jet fans. But my father was actually, believe it or not, a Dallas Cowboy fan. So.
Oh, wow. And he was from New York as well?
No, he's from South Carolina.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes a little bit of sense, then, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
So how do you think living in a big city of New York affected your writing? I mean, how much has it
Um,
impacted your writing?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because I actually like to write small town romance. And I'm a native New Yorker, grew up in one of the biggest cities in the world. But it's strange when I try to explain to people that yes, New York is large and massive, and there's 10 million people here, but it's really a city made up of small communities. And so you get a real small town feel throughout New York as you go from neighborhood to neighborhood. And that's really what I put into my stories. So that's why when I was starting the writing platform, it just resonated with me in terms of small town romance.
Nice. Yeah, Moody Way, we're going to get there. Also, Moody Way is asking in the room. He or she says, "Could you name a few of his books in the chat for me to go look up?" Would you like to do that, Mel?
Sure. Talking about small town romance. I have a 5 book series called Lake Hope. Starts out with Ryan's Kiss. It's contemporary romance. Small town takes place in a city in Indiana, small town.
Nice. Now, actually, when you mentioned the Lake Hoper series, that was actually my third question. So we're going to skip two and move on down. so,
Okay,
so
awesome.
with 15 books, do I have that correct to your name? 15?
I think that's correct.
Okay.
Well, there are some anthologies in there that ran for short periods of time and then they're unpublished. So that's probably about right.
Okay. So the series, Lake Hope, tell me a little bit about that and how that came about.
Um, Actually, my favorite series. So it started with it started with Ryan's Kiss, which is a second chance romance. If you look through my catalog, you see I tend to like second chance romance. It's my favorite trope,
Right.
and so it deals with a brain nerdy girl, Candace, and she's matched up with the most popular boy in school. He's a volleyball star, and she has to tutor him, and that starts the whole journey of Lake Hope. It takes place in Indiana in a town called Destiny Falls, which is near Lake Hope. It's a beautiful resort area, and it started out as one book, but their friends and their circle and their community just resonated with me. That each of her friends I had to then spin off and give them their own story, and so that's how the Lake Hope series grew and the community grew. So the whole town of Destiny Falls, the whole area in terms of Lake Hope, all gets highlighted in terms of the small town vibe, the happily ever after, and the friends all finding romance.
Nice. Now I am looking at the covers currently because I am on my other computer. I'm on your site, which is authormelwalker.com for anyone who's interested. I also have the link at the top of the room in the description. So tell me how about the covers? Um,
Oh,
Go ahead.
sure, sure. So the covers, I'm not sure how I stumbled across the designer, but Tiffany Black is my designer for all the entire Lake Hope series, and she does most of the vast majority of my covers. She's amazing. And I described to her, the mood I was going for and what I was looking for.
Uh-huh.
And we went back and forth for a period of time, and she just came up with the concept right out of the bat, right out of the gate. And I fell in love with it immediately. And you'll see that same concept, the same typography is brought through the entire series. She does such a wonderful job. I can't, exude her compliments enough. She's fantastic.
Right. I especially like the Lake Host series. Those are very nice. The font, the
Thank you.
content, they actually seem like as if they would be along lake, you know what I mean, along the Lake Hopes. You know what I'm talking about? The resort kind of feel
Yes,
going on. So that is
yes,
nice.
yes,
So you're being a romantic at heart. This is what I heard you say.
yes.
um, Now, I don't want to take words in your mouth, but from what I understand, this drove you to write the romance dramas.
Yeah, it's how I view the world and the lens I have on it, and it really gets amplified in my writing in terms of the world I'd like to see. So I try to in my world, in my version of the worlds, it's not just people going after their happily ever afters, but also people growing and respecting one another in that process. So that's that inner romantic of me, and I just like that's the feel I like to have.
Oh, I actually like that to grow and continue because we do change as we get older. So it is
Yes.
nice that hearing that from a man, especially because us women we're always the ones like let's have a talk. So I like
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
I like that especially. Can you tell me a little bit about is your most popular book? By the way, do you know the title? If before I say it.
Jackson's Love, I believe.
According to Amazon, it is
Okay.
finally got it right.
Oh well, that's the latest one. Yes.
Okay.
So that yes, that one is only a few weeks old. Yes.
Okay. Well, do you think it's going to outgrow the latter when you were saying?
Yeah, so the finally got it right is a collection. So those numbers don't surprise me. There are I think 15 stories in that book by 15 different authors. So I just have one book in there called "Kiss You Back," uh, and it's I love writing that story. But in terms of the collection, the entire collection is amazing. In terms of the 15 stories in there, and it's all about once again people finding love.
Nice. So, um, has have you found it difficult being a male romance author?
That's a great question. So I'll give you a quick story. So
Okay.
in 20, I think it was 2020 or 2019. I think it might have been 2020. I went to a writers conference. It was a romance writers conference down in Dallas, of all places. Had a great time, wonderful conference and all. And it was early in my career, and so I didn't realize that I was such a rare bird. At the conference, there were 175 authors. There were only 5 men at the conference. So that's when I was like, oh, okay. And as I've got embedded in the community, I realized how rare it is in terms of male romance authors. I'm not sure why that's so rare because it's a beautiful genre,
Yeah.
and there's a ton of male authors out there, and I think they're just sleeping on a beautiful genre to write in.
Well, you know what? I guess for me, I think it's generalized because
Hmm.
women usually are more typical the romance readers. But I hear you're a romance reader as well.
Yeah. Like I said, happily ever after always resonated with me. So I've always been a fan of the genre. I've always loved, love stories as well as romance stories as well. It's just, it's a wonderful place to be where people get along, and who doesn't love love?
Right. Now, I'm going to ask you a little personal question. You're a family man,
Mhm.
yes?
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
Happily married, right?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
So, how does the wife feel about all the books?
She, it's funny because she's a huge reader,
Uh huh.
but two, she doesn't read romance. So
What?
she reads my books, but not romance per se. She's a big nonfiction reader.
Mm-hmm.
She likes reading historical fiction when it comes to fiction, but she reads a lot of nonfiction as
Nice.
well. But she's fully supportive. At my first signing in 2000 up in Connecticut, she worked the table with me,
Nice.
and she got to meet all the people coming in and see the community, and just the support in the community has been amazing. That's one of the things that really blew my mind is the fellow romance authors are so supportive, so
Yes.
sharing with information, always willing to help out and lend a hand. And it's a wonderful community.
Yes, it is. So I want to dive a little deeper into your character drafting because I have to say, doing a little bit of research, um, your characters, they seem to be very down to earth and realistic. And I remember a quote you were saying in your interview that I was listening to, that you like your male characters to be quite loyal and doting on their female characters.
Yeah, I do. So I'll let you in on an inside secret, especially when it comes to the Lake Hope series. It was done intentional. So each story has the guy's name in the story,
Huh?
but this actual story is about the female.
Ah,
So it's really a twist. So and the reason I do that is all my books I try to feature very strong, powerful women and their arc and their journey, and especially in the Lake Hope series, every featured woman in there is an independent business owner,
mm-hmm.
and they have a very strong drive to succeed on the business front as well as on the romantic front. And that's just something I grew up with. I grew up, my mom. It was in my family. It was eight of us,
Wow.
and my mom was yeah, she was a boss. She, ran the household and went to work and was on top of everything. And so throughout my life, I've had strong female role models. So it's just natural that that's what I put in my stories.
Right. Well, how much do you think of yourself do you put in your characters as well?
Great question. um, I'm sure I'm just like several authors or most authors that, in almost every character, you'll see a piece of me there. I think it's just natural as you write to lean upon your own personal experience and your personal tendencies. So it definitely, in certain characters, it comes out in terms of their humor, in terms of their values, etc. Definitely spread well across the spectrum.
Nice. See, I'm really going to make your fans really gush here. They're just going to be imagining all kinds of things now about you. So tell me, novella versus novels. Do you see novellas as harder, or do you see it as an easier? Sometimes, now for me, I'm just gonna put my own input here, and you can tell me what yours is.
Mhm.
For me, when I write novellas, it's a little bit harder to be honest with you because you've got a shorter platform. You've got to make the feel the content's not rushed. So how do you feel about that? Novella against novel. Which way do you feel is harder, and for what reasons?
That's a great question. So when I first started, I started writing short stories. So for me, novella comes a little easier.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like I think of it almost like a photograph or a snapshot, a day in the life of. And I get to really focus in terms of what's the pivotal moment that drives that story in that point in time. So it's usually very focused, very short in terms of duration,
Hmm.
and it's easier from my perspective to tell that story versus the longer length stories where you have a massive arc, a massive amount of time, a wide cast of characters to manage to bring in and out. So that's my preference in terms of novellas. But I enjoy writing both.
I agree. I do. Well, I have more experience toward the novella. Now, I did write a bunch of
Mhm.
novellas. They're the same storyline and put them in a book, so it looks impressive from the outside. But I'm with you.
Awesome.
Yeah, I know,
Awesome.
right? People are like, you wrote this big book? Yeah, and I just don't say about they're all one. They're all together. But yeah, I agree with you. Novellas are my choice because I don't know. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love series. I mean, you can continue with series, but I just love the short, fast-paced reads. I really do. But also
Mhm.
the challenge of putting something so in depth in a small amount of pages. And Moody Way asked in the
Yes.
room, "What's the difference between novel and novella?" What would be your definition for him or her? I'm sorry.
So yeah. So my definition, I'm sure on Google they probably has the correct numbers, but I think in terms of novella, it's in terms of length of the story, it's typically anywhere from like 15,000 up to like 30 or 25,000 words. Anything above 35, going up to like up to 100 or so is a full length novel.
Holy moly! You know what? I try to cap mine at 40. I might almost be a novelist.
Oh, okay. Yes, yes, you're right there. Put 100 more words and you're there.
I know, right? Dang it! I need to get cracking. Um, I'm just joking. I really do love novellas. I really do. It is my choice. So I heard you started writing in 2015, according to an interview that I was. Oh, hi, Samantha. Moody Way is telling me that she is Samantha. So welcome to the room, Samantha. So I heard you started writing in two.
Welcome.
Yeah, I heard you started writing in 2015. Is that correct? Well, you published in 2015, right?
Yeah, that's when I started publishing. Yeah, I've been writing for forever, it seems that way. But yes,
Okay.
I started. Yeah, that's about the time I really started getting serious about it and getting embedded in the industry and learning.
Okay. But I was digging around. Are you worried?
Mhm. No, not at all.
Okay. I was digging around and I found a book called, now let me know if this is your book, okay? In a Lonely Place, which I believe was published in 2010.
Yes, yes, yeah. So that's the it's no longer available any longer. But
Right.
yeah, that was my first venture out. So they always say, every author has that story that's nagging them in the back of their head that they have to write down. So that was my story in terms of in a lonely place. It was just based off of the story I wanted to tell at that point in time, but it wasn't, the most polished story in terms of the genre and hitting all of the appropriate story beats and characterizations, etc. So that was part of where I realized, hey, I really need to dig into the craft and the industry and understand the proper way to publish a book in terms of being an indie author.
Right.
So that's when I went back. I started attending conferences. I went to the Writers Digest conference here in New York. Also visited Writers Digest conference out in California, and really peeled back and started really focusing and becoming very serious. And that's when I regrouped and came back 2015, doing it in terms of my perspective the proper way.
Right. Well, for you thinking that it wasn't as polished, you had quite a few raving reviews. So,
Yeah.
so even for something that you felt that wasn't up to your current ratings of establishment, it still seemed to be something that really spoke to a lot of people. Would you ever go back and redo it?
I've actually considered that almost every year. I think about going back and redoing it. But I have so many stories in my head that I want to tell that I'll probably just leave it where it's at. The biggest challenge with that story in particular is that it didn't end in a happily ever after, and
Okay.
that's the big challenge with that story. It was a love story that had a big twist at the end, and does not end in a happily ever after.
Well, for my final question for you tonight, Mel, I'd love to know if you have any teasers for any upcoming books or current books that just released. You want to give us any juice?
Oh, sure. Actually, had a new release last week called Doctor Fix It. It's part of a series. There's 13 books in the series, all standalone novels that can be read as standalone. You can jump in at any point in time. The series is called Doctors of Eastport General. And my doctor, Doctor Fix It, is Dr. Angie Carmichael. So I went with a female doctor. Once again, very strong, independent, well-crafted character that I just love. The reviews on that one have been amazing. People are loving the chemistry between Angie and the male character Brayton. So she's a doctor that works at in Rhode Island Hospital. So once again, small town, and she has a one night stand, and then the next day, the guy she slept with shows up at her hospital as a patient, and so it presents other challenges for them throughout. So I won't give away much more than that. Than to say that it's been very well received. It's actually today marks 1 week since the release, so I would highly recommend you check out Doctor Fix It.
Right. And for all those interested, it is on Amazon. Just a little bit of teasers on the reviews. We've got an awesome read, newbie to Mel, and 5 stars on that one. Words mean everything, this one says. Another perfect addition. Um, let's see. Trying to find something on that one. The quote isn't doing it for me. Great story, heartfelt, and it just goes on. So I want to congratulate you, Mel. You are an awesome author. You have a tremendous amount of emotion going through your books, something that is extremely rare as far as being true to your craft. I really felt that whenever everything that I've read of yours. So thank you so
Wow.
much.
No, thank you. That means so much to me. It's what I'm working towards. So, as an author, I always see ways to improve, but that's really, really kind of you to say.
I
Thank you so
wouldn't
much.
say it if I didn't mean it, I swear. I want to thank you so much for being on the program tonight. Again, to all our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. We do have another podcast coming up next Thursday, so please tune in. Thank you again, everyone. Have a great evening. Bye bye for now.